Good evening. It is evening. Here we are. I'm actually in my dressing gown and I have no underwear on.
Oh,
So there you go. It is evening for us because we are recording on a Sunday night. Welcome to another episode. I think this is episode 20 of the Wisdom
I'm not
of
even
Womanhood
counting. I'm just like
podcast.
show up every week and it's
Well,
flying
I
by.
know the only reason I know is because I reference the episodes for people to go and listen to. And so every time I go in and I count them, and I'm pretty sure it was just episode 19. So that feels really fantastic. I think I said it a couple of episodes ago, but I feel really content and happy with this amazing library, of information and sharing and vulnerability and interviews that we're gathering within this podcast. So long may it continue. Welcome, beautiful ones. My name is Showy Moon, and Pippa and I actually got to see each other last night because we hadn't seen each other in person for so long, which is funny because I'm so used to seeing you online. I was like, oh, real person hug.
I know, it was so good.
It was lovely. Uh,
Oh yeah, there's the real
so
you.
yeah. We have a really fantastic conversation that we're going into today. Pippa brought it to me this week, and we've both really been dropping into it and knowing that it is an essential conversation for us to have within this podcast because it resonates so much with our beliefs and with our own journeys, and feels also like a conversation that a lot of people avoid and don't like having and don't like diving into. And we're all about having the conversations that make other people uncomfortable. So just before we start sharing, I'm going to share the topic, and then I just want to give like a couple of pieces that can segue us really beautifully into it, so that everybody listening has the opportunity and invitation to feel supported within this. So we're going to speak into what our beliefs and perceptions of spirituality and religion are, and the ways that those pieces dance together and the ways that they don't dance together. And I really want to go into this with, these are going to be expressions of the accumulation of the experiences that Pippa and I have had so far in our lives. We're also open to the fact that these ideas may change over time based on whatever future experiences come our way. And also, we're not having this conversation with a sense of righteousness, with a sense of we know everything, this is the truth, but this is our truths. And we are going to show up very much in our truths from a really heart-based, compassionate way, with the intention of maybe just creating a bit more harmony within our society, in a space that there's so much division. There's so much division in the space of religion, in the space of spirituality. And what we aim to do always in this podcast is to blend and help us see that we're more similar than we are different. And that all of you is welcome here. And to just open up and plant the seeds of possibility for us as what we believe are our souls. We believe that we are spirits within these physical forms, and that there is so much for us, so much more even for us to understand around that, around being these spirits, these energetic bodies within our existence. And so come along with us as we dive into our own experiences so far, how we were kind of raised, the beliefs that we had around us, how those may have changed over time, and then currently what we believe around what it is to be spiritual, what it is to be religious, and how we can all kind of show up in the world in a way that's super inclusive when it comes to this conversation.
I love your little disclaimers because I think like it it's an uncomfortable topic, isn't it? Because it causes so much divide it causes war,
Yeah.
and it causes just dysfunction. That's the word I want to use, dysfunction. Just because I love the word you use with righteousness. Like, we're not here to say what we believe is right, what we're saying is right. We're here to say, here's our opinions. And you could be listening in your car, at home, wherever you are, and you could be like, I don't agree with you, Pip. I don't agree with you, Showie. And that is okay. And that is
That's
completely
okay.
why we're doing this, because we're not going to sit in a room and say, well, no, you're wrong. And this is the way to be. And that's kind of what religion has done for a long time. A long time is you need to believe this or you're going to die, basically. And that fear that has been cast upon different religions, I think that's the angle I want to come at, is that you are beautiful in your own opinion, and we're never going to sit there and say that's wrong, that, because it's not. It's your journey, it's your perception, it's what you connect to. And shall we mention something before we press record? If we're living in our truth and we're living in love and we're treating people with kindness, but we're doing no harm but taking no shit, then okay. So I think it's a great topic. Like, it was kind of like sat in the back of my mind, and I thought, you know what, let's just do it. Let's just talk about it, because it is a popular topic, and spirituality at the moment is like wildfire. It's everywhere across the world. And I think there's this element of like, I don't want to call this podcast topic spirituality versus religion. I don't like the
No,
verses.
there's no verses.
Exactly. Like, that's the kind of element I want to come as, like, spirituality and religion, because they both exist together. So we're going to come at this with some stories, as always, some vulnerability, as always, and some opinions that you may not agree with. And it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'd love for us to open up, as we were having some conversations before starting the podcast around how we were first exposed to the concepts of soul, of spirit, of religion, of whatever deities, gods, goddesses, were around us in our early years. And then whether or not those are still the beliefs that we hold. I think that that's one part that we all have to remember, is that because all of our programming and understanding around ourselves and others is set in those early years, and that isn't something that we choose. A lot of people are exposed to religion or not religion, or connection to spirit or understanding of us as a soul more than a physical body, and the vast range that even sits within that is very multifaceted. However, those often were not things that we chose, right? They were beliefs that were exposed to us via our family, via our society, our community, what country we were born into, what ethnicity we were born into. And so when we start to look at it from a wide range, it's going beautiful. And so now what? Right? Because as we become adults, is something that Pauline was speaking about when we interviewed her, is that we didn't choose any of that. But as conscious adults, we get to choose whether or not those things still align with us right now, and how we also want to live by them, and how we want to express and be in relation to others in regards to those. Right. And so we're really coming from this place of there's no excuses for any kind of behavior. However, let's look at how we got here,
There's
Yeah.
a personal story coming up in my mind that I wanted to share, quite recently happened. So this isn't to call my mum out, because I adore my mum. So if you are listening, mum, this isn't to say that what you did was wrong. It was just an observation for me to kind of go, oh, to challenge it in a way. Like, so my sister's little girl got baptized last month, May. And the thing in the UK, and I don't know if this is still, it's when I was little, I got baptized because I was going to go to a Catholic school. So we had to be baptized in a Catholic church to go to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, obviously, it becomes this big thing. It's like your baptisms in the UK are like they're very typical. Like you get baptized, you have a big party after, it's like it's just this, it's a UK culture thing. So when my sister was getting, my niece baptized, I didn't think anything of it until I thought to myself, well, why? Because my sister's moving to Australia. And I thought, well, I wonder if that's the thing. It got me curious about, well, why would they get baptized if they're not going to take it to but I could feel the judgment creeping in my world. So I just asked my mum, I said, how come Sam got her baptized if she's not going to go to a Catholic school per se? She might not, because I don't know if that's a thing in Australia, I don't know. And mum said, well, it was probably more me pushing her, really, it's the thing you do. And I was like, that's really interesting because my nan, bless her, she was very religious, very Catholic, went to church every Sunday. And whenever we were at my nan's house, we'd go to church with her just to kind of, it's just a thing we did. We went with her and we lit a candle and we saw Jesus on the cross and we'd say a little prayer. We'd close our eyes and we'd say hymns. And then the real, when someone passes away, you have the whole church ceremony, hymns, this emphasis on, and so I've been thrown in that world of like baptisms, and I got, I had Holy Communion when I was 5. I looked very cute, little white dress, a little white halo. It was really cute, but when it came to being a teenager and being asked if we want to be confirmed, which I presume is like another like confirmation baptism when you're in a teenager, I said no. I said no, I didn't want to, and I was probably like 13, 14 years old, maybe a bit older. But just that personal side of like, I don't hold any opinion around my niece getting baptized, but I just thought it's interesting how my mum said it's just a thing. I probably pushed her more so because the thing you do.
Yes.
And I said, is it though? Like, because but I didn't want to get into it with her, but it really got me interested in that culture of me being brought up in the UK. And I thought to myself, well, hang on, when my baby's here, do I want to baptize him? Like, what's the process in New Zealand? What do we do here? What is the thing we do here? I don't know. So it's a new thing for me. So it was kind of like really me stepping into what I want to do, what I want to, my choice in my baby's life. And I'm not saying that's not what happened with my sister and stuff, but obviously my mum was, and I did actually say to my mum, I may not do that with my baby, that might, because it's different here with culture and that might offend her. I don't know. But
Did she
it'd be,
respond to that when you said that?
no, not really. I think she
Okay.
just was like, oh yeah, because she knows me. She knows I'm not like, I don't follow the crowd. And it actually it was a beautiful conversation. It led to her really wanting to be involved in a mother blessing that I'm having in
Hmm.
October. I said,
Yeah,
hey mom, just
gorgeous.
so you know, I'm doing a baby shower, which is the thing you do for like baby showers. And I was like, okay, I'll do a baby shower. But I'm doing a mother blessing. And she asked what it was. And I said, well, it's a spiritual ceremony where it'll be very spiritual. It'll be very like maybe uncomfortable for you. I don't want to force you in that. And she went, no, I'd love to. I'd love to try something new. It'd be really nice to be there for you. And I was like, oh.
Mm.
So I think it's really going to be nice for her to see, like, 'cause I've never experienced a mother blessing, but I've got the list of what happens and I've had some similar things. And it's going to be nice for my mum to be able to experience that. So it was talk about baptism led into that, me speaking my truth, saying, I may not do that, but I'm having a mother blessing and I'd
Mm.
love you to be there to see how I would do things differently.
Mm.
It's really
Can I
interesting.
just ask around there, like choosing not to have your, what's that called? Confirmation?
Yeah.
Confirmed? Okay. Obviously, I did not have a Catholic upbringing. Um, do you remember what the response was to that when you were like 13, 14, when you said you didn't
I
want
don't.
to?
I just don't.
Cool.
I wasn't forced.
Yeah, beautiful.
Religion in our house wasn't like a. It wasn't like ashamed upon if you didn't do something. I think it just. I think the cool. I think most friends got confirmed in high school because you got to choose a godly middle name. So you could pick a middle name, and
Oh.
I don't have a middle name. My
Mhm.
sister got confirmed. I remember her middle name was Gabriella, and I remember it was like her thing for years, like Samantha Gabriella, and I was like, it's like obviously like get Gabriel, and so yeah, being confirmed was a choice, I think, and I just was like, nah, no, I don't want to, and I don't know what happened at why I didn't want to, maybe just, but yeah, the communion's a big thing. It's a UK thing, like the communion's like a big. My mum's
Mhm.
actually bringing all of my communion gifts that I got when I was like 4 or 5. So I got loads of rosary beads and loads of lovely cards and just memorabilia really. And I've got like little crosses that my nan passed down with little teeth marks in from when my mum bit it and stuff. It's a really lovely memorabilia, but it's interesting, isn't it, how the culture's different. So I'm still now I'm thinking, what do New Zealand do? Like, do you baptize to get into schools here? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, so quite a few of the religious schools, you do need to be
Yeah.
baptized. Yeah, it's
Okay.
part of the state
Yeah.
integration process or the private school process. Yeah. I wouldn't know exactly. I just know that because my kids go to a state integrated and we have different things that we have to do outside of the space of religion. Okay, so do you feel as if the beliefs that you grew up around in terms of spirituality, in terms of religion, are to this present day still the same beliefs that you now carry?
Oh no. But
So how's that changed?
I think what changed it for me was the fear around it, like the fear of, I remember being a kid and not wanting to do wrong because I thought God would punish me. Like I remember that. I remember feeling that fear as a kid, like I can't steal. Like I can't steal. Like, or what if I st not that I wanted to, but I'm just saying like, oh,
Yeah.
because my friends were all doing naughty things and things, but like I used to sit and really think about it in my room, like, oh, if I sin, because obviously we're in school, we would sing a hymn at the end of the day, we'd sing a hymn at the start of the day, we'd sing a hymn at lunchtime, we did religious studies, and I think if I meditated on it, I really got back into high school. Religious studies was a core topic. We couldn't not choose it. It was part of our like, math, science, English. It was part of that. I remember we have to read like parts of the Bible, and I I I love the stories. I loved the stories, the Moses story. I just love some of the stories in there. But I remember thinking to myself, like, is this what I think you just get into it and you just think this is but then obviously as you get older you challenge it. So I think how I would feel now is I take what I need from it, what feels good for me. I take There's some beautiful passages in the Bible that I think are beautiful. The way they quote things, the
Mm,
way they say things,
mm,
the true meaning behind the words. There's some beautiful, beautiful passages and verses in the Bible, but just it's the fear I felt as a kid, the fear I felt as I can't sin. I'll go to hell.
mhm.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. So it feels as if that that was the part that shifted you more into maybe having some personal discernment around the beliefs that were integrated around you and going, actually, part of this doesn't feel true and doesn't feel good to me. However, there's still beauty in it that I want to hold on to and keep as a faith that helps me navigate through life. Does that feel true? Yeah, beautiful. Um, okay, cool. So I had a really different upbringing. I so yeah, my parents are so my stepmom was interesting. I had a conversation with my stepmom today because I was staying with my parents and she asked what topic we were doing and we had a fantastic conversation around exactly this. And so she also grew up very Catholic and went through, religious schools, but was kind of very similar to you. And the fact it was kind of a couple of generations back that it was really kind of deeply ingrained into lifestyle by the time it was at her. And she studied avidly the Bible and then would go into her classes and question everything. Because that's who she is, and she really likes understanding things. I'm like, why is it like this? And if it's like that, then why is it like that? And it's really how she does life. And so yeah, we had this great conversation around it. So when they were raising me, my dad and my stepmom, I never went to church with them ever. There was no this is one and only religion. There was no putting down of other religions though. There was a really deep connection for me growing up to the land. I vividly remember like being around not prayers to the land, but like honoring. We had this huge section and we had animals and we tended to it and we gathered food from it. And there was always a reverence that my parents held around how we treat nature and how we treat one another. And there was also always rituals and celebrations. One thing my stepmom was saying, she's like, she's very ritualistic. We went and got spring water from the mountain behind their house this morning, which is, we always do that when we stay there because they only drink spring water from the mountain behind their house. And whenever they go up there, my stepmom sings a prayer, a blessing, a karakia in Te Reo Māori. And she's from the UK. That's where she was born. But in Te Reo Māori, and blessing and thanking, the earth, the essence of te awa, the water, rangi nui, papatuanuku. And so she lives in a very ritualistic way in a lot of her life. There's lots of ceremony, some elements of connection to like Wiccan and pagan cultures, of like the solstice and different celebrations that celebrate the earth and the spirit. And so that was really what my upbringing was. And I feel really blessed personally because what I think was a gift and what I'm doing in my parenting is that I am not saying there is one only way.
Yeah.
And I also had that and I grew up with that. Like one of my 3 children very strongly has an association with God and Jesus. And it's super beautiful because my children go through Rudolf Steiner education, and part of their education is that they are taught every belief. So they start often with with Aesop's fables, fairy tales, Aesop's fables, and they go into looking at the Bible. They look at the Egyptian cultures, they look at Roman, they look at Greek. They really cover all bases, like Indian, and they go into all of the gods that are involved. And that felt really in alignment with me, which is how I grew up, because it's about giving choice and also going, there is no one way. But like if my children come to me and say, this is what I truly believe, I'm going to go, beautiful. I will continue to support you in that. And it's interesting, even the conversations come up between the kids, which is great. It's great to be able to go, this is what I firmly believe, and this is what I firmly believe, and here's why I believe it. And also that's okay. Once we've expressed our things, then it's not that we then fight against one another about it. It's that we honor those, but we can passionately speak about what we believe in as well. So that's kind of how I grew up, and essentially it stayed very similar in many ways. However, the one thing, and I was reflecting on this today, that definitely has changed, and I would say only in the last couple of years, is that prior to the last couple of years, for most of my adult life, I have felt a strong contraction and discomfort around God.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. You can refer back to our episode around her story. What I was responding to somatically was not God, I now know. What it was responding to was the way that the Bible has been used in history as justification of the mistreatment of people.
Yeah.
Which is a true statement. And it's a true statement based on, I'm going to cut, this is what I believe is a true statement. And, I feel free to question me on this. However, I have done a lot of research and it's not just based on opinion. it's also based on current day statistics. Obviously, I work in the space of sexual harm and mental health prevention. And so I know that these things are still happening within religious spaces. So what was happening for me is that I was having a response to what people have done, not what religion has done. However, I thought my belief was that it is what religions have done to people. And what I'm really happy about now is to be able to make that, to have the discernment to separate people and the way that they use things to harm others and the actual essence of religions. There's a term omnism that I really resonate with, and that term is the definition of it is that there is beauty and truth and value in every existing religion, and also that no one religion is the truth. And that's what I live by. And, you know, like Pippa was saying before, it's something I'm really big on, is that as long as nobody is causing harm and mistreatment to others, it does not make a difference to me how you define your faith. I do think it's important we have faith. I think the lack of faith is a major contributor into people feeling hopeless and helpless, and losing connection to life and connection to their own spirit and their own essence, the lack of faith. And so I'm really big on us believing in something. I personally have had way too many experiences to believe that there's nothing other than this. Like, it really has become impossible. Even if I wanted to, it'd be like, yeah, right, let's see. So yeah, there's definitely a belief. So yeah, that's the thing that's changed for me. Whereas, and I'll go into these in a moment, but now I really can sit, and even my body responds in very open and positive sensations to any particular language used around religion now, whereas in the past it didn't. So that feels like a really nice place to be in. Okay, beautiful. So as you can hear, we've had different upbringings, different experiences, but the theme that has been there is that we've taken responsibility for our present day and how we show up and how we utilize our beliefs to live in a way that is according to what we believe it is to be good humans, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So before we were recording, Pippa was speaking about some things she wanted to bring into this, and I'm going to invite in a second, that have helped to open up some spaces and understandings for her, and they're in relation to the book Conversations with God. So I'm going to ask her to share her experiences with that. And you know, again, prior to going into this, now that we're really in this space of using this terminology, I invite you to be with any sensations that are coming up, just like I spoke about and how I used to feel discomfort around things. My invitation is to stay really present with your body and with any feelings, any thoughts, any beliefs that are coming up in this conversation and will continue to. And from a place of curiosity, again, you know, we don't need to judge them and just be like, oh, like I can feel myself shutting down, or I can feel myself feeling whatever the emotions are, and just kind of stay with them as we continue to navigate through this, because it's by no coincidence you're listening to this, and there is obviously some kind of learning that is here for you.
Before I get into the book series Conversation with God, which I actually had the pleasure to talk to Neil Donald Walsh on my podcast, so go back to Conscious Convo and find it. It was a beautiful conversation. Shall we mention the history? And I grew up in the UK, so a lot of my lineage is British, is Irish, is Scottish, Norwegian, just, you know, all around that area. And I think there was this kind of like, so my mum's Catholic and my dad's Church of England. So I just want to bring something in there. So they're very similar, very similar. The Church of England was brought in by King Henry VIII because he couldn't get divorced. So he set up the Church of England. I'm not going to butcher that story because Chris will laugh at me because he's the history nerd. But I remember, like, a king created his own religion, and that in itself caused divide. So if I can get the names right, his daughter, Bloody Mary, she that's when all like the burnings were happening and things like that, because again, you're not your Church of England, you're not Catholic, there was just that divide then, and
Divide.
that's in our lineage, that's in our like blood, in our DNA. So I'm thinking like there's this, and the association to God. I remember like, you know, I'm going to speak on Taoism really quickly in a sec, because the Taoism isn't a religion. Taoism is a philosophy, and I love the Tao. And just using the word God, the language of God, of just God. I would say things like, oh, I can't say God, I need to say universe. Or then when I read the Tao, I was like, oh, I can say Tao now. I can say Tao, that Tao. Because Tao says the name that can be named is not the eternal Tao. It's like whatever you call it, it doesn't matter. So the association of that, I can't say God because people think I'm religious. There's that self-judgment of that. So Wayne Dyer, as I talk about a lot, is a big spiritual teacher of mine, and he rewrote the Tao Te Ching. So he spent a whole year reading the Tao, taking the Tao in, and he rewrote it in like modern ways. And that's one of my favorite books, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. I always lend it out to clients. I used to buy it for people. I go, read this, it's amazing. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way of seeing life. So I won't go into that because it's a different topic for a different day, but it just got me thinking of like my upbringing. I think what got me challenging, Christianity and Catholic was I traveled a lot as a teenager, and we started to go on holiday and we see other cultures, and we're like, well, but they don't do the same as me. Like, so that as a young girl, I'd be like, well, that's not the same as me. So I think obviously like that, as I grew older, there was obviously a niggling part of me that was always going to be spiritual and, awakened to that. Conversations with God, if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. Book one is just game changer. Neil Donald Walsh had hit rock bottom in his life. I won't go into a story because it's just unbelievable. But he'd hit rock bottom and he's like, what do you want from me, God? I'm done. Like, I've had enough. And then he starts to hear God. He actually corrected me on the podcast. He said, I didn't channel God. I just downloaded him because he's part of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Wayne saying to Oprah on the show, we're all a piece of God. And she challenged him and she said, you can't say that. You can't say we're God. And Wayne said, but we are. We're just pieces of him. Like, we're just pieces of God. We're all this energy. We're all in. And it just, how he described it, I was like, go Wayne. So reading Conversation with God, which is quite interesting because Chris read it in the 90s when it came out. And obviously I was only a little girl back then because of our age gap. But that really changed how he saw things. And Chris was brought up Mormon, which is really interesting. So he was baptized Mormon. Conversation with God. One of the questions he asked many questions. It's basically it's a dialogue with God. Neil would sit there with a pen, and it would just be automatic writing. He'd ask a question, and God would write through his pen. Profound. And one of the questions that really sat with me was like, okay, so if you're this all-knowing, all-being, you're God, why haven't you shown yourself? Like, why haven't you shown yourself to us? If you're this powerful, why are you not here now? And his response, I'll have to try and get the book, and I'll post a snippet of it on our social media. And he said, if I showed up as a white man with a beard, that may look right to Christianity. But if I showed up as a darker skinned man with dark hair, that might look better for Muslim. How I show up, it would cause too much divide, even more divide, to be like, well, that isn't the true God that they describe in my book or my Bible or my Quran or whatever it is, whatever religion it is. But he said, I'm everywhere. I don't need to present myself as a man, a woman, a dog, a cat, whatever. I'm everywhere. I'm within you. And I was like, that makes sense, because that's a question you would ask. It's a simple question, like, if you are all this knowing God, but what he was trying to say was like, I am around. You just need to see me, your perception, because that's our mind can only comprehend so much. So we need, it's like our humanness, bless us, because we're having this human experience. We need to be able to see him in like a human flesh to be like, oh, he's real, he's real, he's real. We're really like he's everywhere, like he's in the, like what Shawi said, the nature, the spring water, and that's why the Tao's beautiful, because he says everywhere. The wind through the leaves, the laugh in your children, the tears that drop down your face, the ground that you stand on, the sun that shines down on you, the rain that comes down on you. That's where God is. That's everywhere. So really, he's here now. It's everywhere. My voice, Shawi's voice. So that book is a game changer. It really is. And just some of the questions he asked, I'm like, oh, that's what I would ask. If I could say, God, present yourself to me now, let's have a chat. What would you ask? And Neil asks all those questions, and I'm like, he just answered everything I would have asked. It's a really, really beautiful series. I highly recommend it.
Lush.
Lush.
Lush. I was so with you, like as you were describing every single part that is the reflection. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, there, and it's there. Okay, gorgeous. I'm gonna, like, I've had some pieces that are really important to kind of drop into this now. And so I want to kind of pull back a bit into my current perception of all of this, and I'm going to share it based on events that have happened as opposed to a formation of beliefs up in my head. This is full body experiences that have happened that have brought me to where I am now. And so one really important thing I want to drop in now is that coming back to some of the stuff we've spoken about in the podcast around the suppression of women that has happened. So there is much evidence around the goddess way before God ever existed. So just to make sure that that comes in, because that feels important for me to share, prior to there being a masculine imprint onto the highest level of religion, the highest level of religion within many religions. Way before that, we now have uncovered much in our history that is through many different places around the world, a prayer and honoring of what was a female goddess, because she is the creator, she is the womb, and long before the Bible came into us as a civilization, there was lots of honoring of the goddess. That feels really important for me to drop in because it really resonates with what my experience has been. So I became a Reiki practitioner around about 6 or 7 years ago now. And it's a really interesting thing to drop into this, because I have clients that have a whole array of different religious beliefs that I see. And one really interesting thing that I came across when I did my Reiki level 1 training, and that I often share in places and spaces when it feels important to, and obviously I do attunements because I've done my master's, and so I teach it and I do the attunements with my students. Now, what's really interesting around energy work is that there is in some spaces a lot of negative response to it from people that live within different religions. And I'm going to be really honest, there's comments like, oh, it's the devil's work.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
It's negative, it's dark, it's shadow, it's witchcraft, all these things. I'm going to tell you a really good story right now, and this is factual. Reiki, which is a form of energy healing. This is how it came to be as its present day form of Reiki.
Best story.
Over
Reiki
100 years ago. Is this not so good, Shea? Okay.
Oh.
So over 100 years ago, was actually a theology university lecturer. So he was a lecturer of theology. Okay, so just let that sit for a second. And his students would come to him and ask him, how did Jesus heal people with his hands? and they would come to him and they would ask him, and he would kind of sit with it and be like, well, I kind of know, but I'd really like to investigate this further. So he went and explored many different cultures, many different places around the world, and wanted to understand this concept of hands-on healing. And what he found was that throughout the world in different cultures, there was also evidence of hands-on healing, just like there was with Jesus, prior to Jesus, by the way. And in his uncoverings, he found some Sanskrits. He found some things within the Tibetan culture that had some remnants of some really early on teachings and understandings of hands-on healing. So what he did was then he went into 21 days of meditation and fasting and prayed to God, because he believed in God. That was who he prayed to. And so on the top of a mountain, 21 days of fasting and meditation. And on the 21st day, he was struck by force, by light. I thought he was dead. When he came back, he saw the symbols that he'd been studying come very, very clearly to him. Symbols that came to him, and he had colors that came to him, and he had sensations in his body. And like, he thought he was dead. It was a very spiritual experience. And then he climbed back down the mountain, and the first thing he did was he went to the archbishop, and who was suffering badly from arthritis. And he said to him, I have found, like Reiki, I have found the secrets of healing, of energy healing, of using our bodies as these ways of healing. And he placed his hands on the archbishop, and the archbishop's pain went away. And so from that point, over 100 years ago now, and from that point, Reiki has traveled all throughout the world. Like, I have my certificate, and there's only actually like 8 people between Dr. Usui and then myself as a Reiki master. Yeah. And so it's traveled throughout the whole world. And what a lot of people don't know is that it came from an exploration and a curiosity around Jesus himself. Okay. And so I'm sharing this story because, first of all, it's going to lead into more of my personal experiences. Now I got to where I am now. But can we now just start to see how there is much more blending of what we think are separate beliefs and separate ways of living, and there is much more integration than a lot of us have been led to believe. So that story is important to share. What happened when I started doing my Reiki attunements is that this was when I still had like some feelings to the terminology that was used around it. But I just started opening myself up to it, obviously then, furthered my understanding of myself as an energetic being. And I was opening up to my own spiritual gifts, and I was seeing more, and I was hearing more. And my intuition was becoming more on form, and I started seeing a lot more. I started seeing goddesses come into my Reiki sessions. I did a lot of work with Isis, I had Mother Mary come in. I've had the High Priestess come in. I've had angels coming in, and I have had spirits come in where I have described them perfectly to my clients, and I have not known anything about this. I have given clients messages that I could not have possibly known. And so as these things started happening more and more and more, and I wanted to drop in, right? So I'm working with goddesses, different archetypes from all different places. I just started being open to and surrendering myself to spiritual experiences and what they could offer me and how they could heighten my faith and my belief. And my faith and my belief has kept growing and growing and growing. Now, a couple of years ago, I was on my table having a Reiki session by a friend of mine who's also a Reiki practitioner. And at this point, I was I wouldn't say I was in a really low place, but I was feeling quite lost and frustrated because I could see where we were going as a consciousness and as humanity. And there was so much harmony and cohesion and love. And at this period of time, which was just around things happening around the internationally around COVID outbreaks, and there was a lot of fear, and there was a lot of separation, a lot of division, I was feeling frustrated because I couldn't see now what I knew was going to exist in humanity, right? And I was having a light language attunement because I had light language start coming through, which was really, really interesting because also that is what the church calls speaking in tongues. And it's the same thing. And it's a frequency of energy that moves through your throat chakra. Anyway, another story. And I was lying on the table and I fully felt myself come out of my body. And I was up in sky. I was up out and I could still see my body. And when I was up out of my body, I was fucking angry. And I was angry and I didn't want to come back. And I was like, this is not how I know we can live as a species in humanity. What the fuck is this? It's very heavy. It's very dense. I don't want to be there. I then saw two angels come in around me and they were male and they were talking to me and, being it's going to be okay. And still I was like, no, fuck this. I don't want to be here. Mm-hmm. It's heavy. And I did have a moment of like, holy shit, I hope that I come back. And then I'm going to tell you what happened next. I had what I can only describe to the best of my ability and understanding as a male presence, a very warm, powerful male presence who I would describe as God come to me. That's the only language that I can use to best explain this experience. Came to me and spent time with me and explained to me that I was going to see the changes within humanity a lot quicker than I thought I would, and just to hold on to faith and hold on to hope and to know that love was here and that kindness was here and that unity was here, and to just keep holding the space and just keep being that and just keep embodying that and just keep having faith that things were going to change and everything was going to be okay. And gently these two angels and this God brought me back into my body. I came back into my body. I felt like tears energetically streamed down my face and ground me into Earth Mother, into Gaia. And I came back, and from that point on, my hope became unwavering. My belief, everything that I knew was going to happen, it just really grounded it in much deeper for me. And also I had this experience and I was like, holy shit. So like any doubt I had of people experiencing God and having these conversations, I also believe we have experiences with, like Athena and like Mother Mary and like all these other essences as well, because I believe they're all essences and frequency. And then I had one other experience that happened maybe about a year after that. I was doing a Reiki session on a friend of mine, and she started speaking. And when she was speaking, it was not her normal voice. It was not the way she normally speaks. Everything came out in rhyme. The whole thing came out in rhyme. And it was this beautiful expression of life and love and how to live and how to be, and then directly was speaking to me, like directly to me, giving me guidance, telling me the things I need to do. And again, every phrase was rhyming and it was poetic, and we both, I was there like, oh my gosh. Okay, and just thinking it in, like really just being in the present experience of this. And then it finished, and then she stopped, and then we came back, and she was like, holy shit, I think that was God.
Awesome.
And she had no idea what was coming out. She was hearing it as it was also moving through her body. And the reason I share these experiences is because one thing that I think has happened, and I'm going to really call people out on, is that within this finding ourselves within spirituality, where it's too easy for us to dismiss the possibility of other beliefs also coexisting, because I actually don't think that things have to exist separately. I believe that, yes, I see myself as the soul, and I believe in the law of attraction and the law of manifestation. I also believe in God, and I also believe in the goddess. I also, believe in reincarnation, which, by the way, existed in the Bible until about 400 AD. Mm-hmm. Like I believe in all of these things at the same time based on my own experiences. However, I have, and Pippa has, chosen to be open to the experiences that allow us to learn without the restraints of thinking that we fucking know.
Yeah.
Because when we think we fucking know, it's too easy for us to dismiss things that don't align with what we think is the only way. And I believe when we can be open to this with that sense of curiosity and openness, and how many more miracles can I experience, and how many more interactions can I have with the non-physical, and how much more faith and hope can I allow to exist within my body, and how much more can I believe in a higher power, and how much less do I have to put a fucking label on it and decide there's only one way. Because when we do that, all we're doing is putting barriers on what we can experience in this life and other lives.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a lot.
So,
Thank you.
there's a book that Wayne talks about on the shift called Quantum Change. And he talks about having quantum moments, like, like those aha moments or awakenings, and you can't describe them. You really can't describe them. And any of you that know Wayne and his stories and what he's been through, Chris and I went here for my 30th, and it was on my dream to go there. We went to Assisi, and that's where St. Francis grew up. And so Wayne was very, St. Francis was a god to Wayne. He prayed to him. So he just loved his story, and so I was just really drawn to go to Assisi because Wayne was there, and just resonating with the whole what happened to Wayne in Assisi. So Chris and I went. We got the train from Rome, and we stayed there for a night, and it was the most magical experience. We got to see St. Francis' tomb. We got to see where he grew up, and beautiful pilgrimage of just, and loads of weird stuff happening there, and just really, I've got it all in a journal somewhere. But we wanted to go to the steps where Wayne had his miraculous healing. So Wayne had I think it was his knee. He had a really bad knee. So walking up these steps, there was a group of them, and the steps got narrower as you go up, and there was a guy behind him, and I think he had cerebral palsy, and he had his legs in braces, and as he had to kind of put his legs out to kind of walk like that. And Wayne said obviously the stairs were getting now more narrow, and he was stuck. So obviously you can't go down because there's just a line of people behind. The only way was up. So Wayne, in his beautiful essence, in that moment just said, "Get on my back." It was an instant thing. Just get on my back. I'll carry you. And he took 3 or 4 steps, and his knee was about to just go completely. And he just had this vision of the newspaper the next day of Wayne Dyer, spiritual teacher, fallen downstairs, killed 10 people. He had this moment of I'm going to fall, and my knee's about to go. And St. Francis appears to him. And he said he spoke, but he didn't understand what he was saying. And he just did this, rise. So Wayne just rose, and he ran up the stairs right to the top. And his wife was like, "Where have you been?" And he said, "St. Francis just came to me. He's healed me. Oh my God." His knee was he's supposed to have an operation on it in a couple of weeks, and it was just completely healed. At the time, Wayne said, because obviously this was a long time ago when he was telling the story, he said, "Well, I'm Wayne Dyer. I'm a spiritual teacher. He's obviously going to heal me." That ego sense came in. I love that Wayne talks about that. But how that we can pull on these beautiful, if you think about the ascended masters and things like that, Jesus is a part of the ascended masters. He's part of that, the gods and the goddesses.
It was a hands-on healer. It was an energy healer. I fully believe in Jesus Christ, 100%.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I've had experiences and have friends that have experiences and know people who we also, and not that we're comparing, but we're going, I know that existed back then because we're fucking doing the same things now because we've tapped into the power that is within us, not gone. The power is outside of us. We've allowed spirit to move through us and activate things within ourselves, right?
So that's what I was saying with Wayne. St. Francis was a healer. He was the patron saint of animals. So animals would just flock to him. And so Wayne had this miraculous moment with St. Francis. And so Chris and I went to these steps, and we were like, "Oh my God, this is where he's had his healing." It was just beautiful, the basilica, and then going to where his tomb, we both cried. We went to his tomb, and it just was such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place on a hill. Assisi. If you ever get a chance to go to Italy, oh, just beautiful place. And it got me thinking about like the one true God, the one true this, the one. It's like we're all part of God. So if Saint Francis did his work, he might have been very Catholic and very Christian in his beliefs, but now he's up somewhere else. He's in spirit, and we can call upon Saint Francis. I do it all the time when we go out of my house here. All the birds go to sleep, and Chris and I go, Saint Francis, Saint Francis, Saint Francis, Saint Francis, because we don't want to disturb the birds. And it actually works. Like if we don't, we just barge out the door, the birds get disturbed. But if we both go, Saint Francis, okay, Saint Francis, like the birds stay like quieter. It's really funny. We always do it. So it was just a really beautiful, like spiritual, pilgrimage that Chris and I went on, and it kind of brought up a lot for us and stuff like that. And like, but if we look at like Jesus being this healer, okay, hands-on healer, the story of what happened to him, like the story of Jesus is worldwide. It's worldwide known. It's one of the most famous stories ever. He was hung on the cross and he forgave the people who were, gonna kill him it was just this like. But if you take what Jesus went through, without this being a completely separate topic, because we can go down so many rabbit holes in this topic, what you can take from the story of Jesus and like the forgiveness around, and I think there's just this like beautiful, he saw people through the eyes of God. He saw people through the eyes of consciousness, oneness, like that omnism, like I think that oneness, like what everything has. Yeah, and I think this like
love.
You can take his story and be like, he was killed, he was murdered, humans are shit, blah blah blah. But it's like, hang on, stuff's like that happening right now. So what can we take from the Bible, from these religions? And we pull things from them that we need. We pull things like, that was so beautiful. Can I enhance that in my life? Can I bring that story into my life? Shao and I are healers. We ignite healers in others. That's what Jesus did. He placed his hands and said, you're healing yourself. I am just igniting the healer within you. I am that I am. That's why I love the Moses story. And just like how powerful you are. And that's why I love Jesus, because he wasn't strutting about being like, well, I'm a healer and spiritual teacher and I know it all. It's like he was going around saying, you're a piece of God. 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 And I think Wayne talks about it beautifully. Like if you ever listen to Wayne's talks and things like that, it's just like fear drives people. It drives people to do things that aren't the truth. And we've seen that through our history. So Jesus' work,
right now.
Jesus' work. The most recent count was the witch trials. That was healing work. Look what happened to us then. So it happens now, but it's the shift that's happening in humanity is. It's just there's no. I can't just. The thing is that the language barrier. There's a language barrier sometimes. Like that's why with quantum change, Wayne says you can't physically. There's no language for me to speak here right now, unless you were feeling it as I was feeling it. That's the key of like that feeling that Wayne talks about, when that love washes over you. And I have those moments where I'm like, oh, life is just so fucking beautiful. And there's like it lasts for like half an hour, and I'm texting everyone saying, oh my God, it's like a natural drug high. It's like Wayne talks about it. It's this just essence comes over you, and you're like, there's no words for it, but I'm just relishing in that moment. And I think that's God's presence just coming into you, just that filling you up with, and that the more conscious we get, the more love we invite into our life, that becomes more depth, that becomes more powerful, and it's just beautiful.
And also it is in direct correlation to, and also exactly the same thing, like my understanding, my belief right now is that we are born as love, And it is our prime obligation to remember that and return to the place of love. And you can bring any religion into that space if you like. But I also believe, you say it's a presence of God. What I believe is that, yes, and all of the essence of everything that is non-physical, but more than that, it is the presence of ourselves. It is us and the present experience of being love. It is us in deep resonance and remembrance and reverence of ourselves as that, and the way that time and space shift when we come into absolute this moment right now. I am truth, like I am the essence of the universe. That in itself is the deep remembering, and that is what's being spiritual is remembering who the fuck we are. And if believing in a religion also helps you to bring back to remembering who the fuck you are, and I will say, as long as that is not completely outside of you, as long as it is coming back into who the fuck you are, not being guided by anyone or anything outside of you, then that's it. That is what we're being asked to do by spirit, by soul, by God, by Ishtar, by whoever or whatever it is. It's that coming back into us as the essence of all. We are the reflection of nature. We are the reflection of one another. We are the reflection of energy, of essence, of color, of senses, of everything. Like we are that, but we only find it in exactly how you described that stillness, right? That absolute, like, now, how can I be in this experience right now without the fears blocking me, without the barriers of what is real and what is not, and of what time and space and physicality look like. It's like, can we just be with the experience of being our soul right in this moment? And that is where you will find whatever the fuck you want to call it. You'll find it there. That's where it is.
I want to bring up Doreen Virtue really quickly. She's coming up for a reason. I haven't thought about her in a long time. Do you
I
know
know
Doreen
why.
Virtue?
I just dropped it into our space. Do you know why? Because I was just told a story about it.
Oh wow. So I only know Doreen Virtue from her oracle cards, her angel cards, the beautiful, beautiful angel cards. And a few years ago, she renounced all of her spirituality and she became religious and she became Catholic and she was a devout Christian. She was reborn, like we call reborn Christian. What I want to say about the story is at the time, I saw a lot of judgment, a lot of hate. But what I want to say about Doreen as well is that with her change of heart, with her change of faith, there was a lot of pushing of her saying, well, all that work I was doing was demons work. It was, and this is where I want to get to a point before we finish at the end is like, Shawty's made this point many times today. How you find faith and how you connect to faith, it matters to you. And I think when, I could wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm reborn Christian. Does that mean I'm going to like lose friends? But what the key of it is that whatever you choose, it's with anything in life. It's not like religion becomes this like essence of who we are. It's the identity of who we are. And it becomes like, what faith are you? What faith are you? What faith are you? What faith are you? But it's the pushing of it on other people.
Yeah.
That's not okay. It's okay for me to sit here and say, I'm a spiritual being. I follow a spiritual life. That might be different to anyone listening who's spiritually. They might have a little bit of difference in the spirituality. We all have a different element to spirituality and what it looks like. But when Doreen changed to Christianity, she did say all of her work was Satan's work, demons' work. Me personally, I don't believe there is demons. I don't believe there's Satan. I believe there is darkness as there is light. I believe
We're all made up of all of it.
Well, they were created for fear, weren't they? Like I was terrified of like Satan and demons when I was a kid, thinking they were going to come down and smite me. Like just because like it was in the Bible, it was talked about. So Doreen came up in my head then just because she completely changed. I think is it Russell Brand who's just completely gone the opposite. He's spiritual now, he's Christian, and it's like okay, like that's okay, but can we
And
leave
also
people
those
just
things,
to don't
and they
push it
don't,
and be like, well, I've changed, you need to change now. This is the trueness of this is the true religion. This is how we should live. No, it's how
you
I want to
should.
live. It's what I choose.
Mm,
It's my truth.
mm,
So I just wanted to bring her up because, I still use her cards. There
mm.
was a time when she did renounce it. I was like, oh God, should I use them? Oh, I was like, oh my God. But I just thought, no, like I love those cards. I love using them
Mm.
cards. So yeah, she just popped in my head just because of that change.
Well, I'm going to tell you why else she popped into your head, because I was bringing in this sharing as I was sharing, as you were sharing before. Okay, so my dad just told me about it's either in a book or there's an interview about it. But when Doreen Virtue was doing past life regressions, so she was a hypnotherapist and she did a lot of work with Dr. Brian Weiss too, who I've
Yeah,
done a lot of study around with past life regressions, right? Do you know about the past life regression she did with a client, and the client was Jesus's teacher?
maybe, but remind me.
Yeah. So so beautiful. Like this is so powerful and so beautiful. She had a client who then went back to a life where I'll do long story short because we've got into this a lot, but I'm gonna do long story short. This woman who went back in time ended up being one of the teachers who Jesus came to and did a lot of teaching around that time. And this client was able to describe the historical places even more detail, and actually made sense of a lot of the spaces that they have their archaeological sites of. Obviously, she'd never been there, she had no understanding of it, but she was then describing within these hypnosis sessions some of Jesus's teachings that definitely either did not go into the Bible or were taken out of the Bible, that so much are of the essence of the conversations we're having today that are around oneness, that are around us as souls that come into these bodies and then move through other bodies, that talk about the way that our soul families integrate and we move and we're like leaves that are on a plant together and we come and we go, and beautiful, powerful teachings that a lot of what was lost or has intentionally been taken out. But I love the details around this particular client and this experience that happened with Doreen, because like she was able to put together the pieces that our archaeologists had missed in a lot of our most sacred sites. And I mean, when you start looking at stuff like that, you really have to continue to blow up for what you think it is and go, oh my gosh, there's so much more. And if we can just be open to the pieces continuing to fall into place and realize again that there's much more cohesiveness than maybe we're being intentionally led to believe.
Yeah, it's funny how she came up in my head just because it's obviously in the
Mm-hmm.
conversation. Because she's the one that
Mm-hmm.
really, her story was kind of like, just it was everywhere, wasn't it? She was a big spiritual teacher, and I
Yeah.
think, but that's okay. Like just because, like like I said, Shao and I could wake up tomorrow and be like, okay, well, I'm calling myself a Taoist, or I'm calling, it
Mm-hmm.
just the thing is, like, it doesn't matter what we call ourselves. Like, it's that label is the attachment to
Totally.
I'm Christian, I'm spiritual, I'm Hinduism, I'm
And
Muslim, and it's like
and
I'm
I
not
get
here to
it
say that
though.
it's
Yeah.
wrong. What I'm saying is that the
Yeah.
attachment to that is like, can we take the attachment from that identity and say, in those practices, in that religion, in that
Yeah.
faith, am I
Mm.
choosing love? Am I being kind? Am I
Yeah.
being am I being a being? Am I being like what is the teachings of like the love and the kindness? Like the Tao teaches the values of reverence and benevolence and
Mm-hmm.
service
Mm-hmm.
to others and
Mm-hmm.
kindness and softness
Mm-hmm.
and gentleness. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what I aspire to be. That's the
Mm-hmm.
values I want in my
Mm-hmm.
life, because that's the trueness of we are. Yes, we have layers of darkness, we have layers of trauma, we have layers of ugliness to us, but they exist together, the dark and the light, don't they? Like it's just this, like you mentioned, the dance, the beautiful intertwined of like they exist together, that they're all existing together. And I think, you know, if you are listening and you say, well, I'm Christian, Pip, or I'm whatever, you know, whoever's listening, just go into that. What does that mean to you? What's the meaning in that? Like what is that? That's okay. It's
Beautiful.
awesome. I think it's
Absolutely.
awesome that you have this belief.
Mhm.
You might pray to a certain God. You may pray to a certain goddess.
Mhm.
You may pray to Saint Francis as your God. Like, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter. It's like, what's the meaning in that choice? What's the meaning in that truth for you? And it could
Mhm.
be, well, being a Christian for me is that I'm honoring Jesus and what he did and what he taught and things like that. It could be I'm honoring the fact that God is this, you know, just divine being. And so it's just, instead of just being like, well, I'm Christian. Okay, what does that mean to you? Go into that meaning. What's the values in that for you? I think that's where I started to dive into my spirituality. What was spirituality to me? You know,
Yeah.
what did that bring up for me? The values I want to live by. So it's a really interesting topic, and I think we've handled it really well because Shawi said, like, great topic. We need to jump on just for a quick chat beforehand because like
Just so we would,
yeah,
holding the space.
yeah,
Yeah.
we don't want to come at it as, that's never our intention, whatever topic we come at,
Mm.
that we want to
And
push.
also we've committed to every single one of you that we will show up in our authenticity. And so within this, we have done that, and we shall continue to, no matter what area we're speaking into, no matter what we're sharing, you can count on us to be that. And so thank you for being with us in our authenticity of our own experiences and beliefs within this conversation. We feel immense gratitude and support, and also we honor whatever your authentic expression within this is as well.
Oh, I have so much gratitude for different religions because I've traveled so much and I've seen religion at play. I've seen it like
Yeah.
in the depth. I've seen it in the temples. And I'm
Oh,
just so grateful for it to see it.
mm.
One of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had was in Thailand, like just going into the temples,
I was just
how,
thinking of Thailand.
just taking shoes off and just sitting in those
Mm.
temples, and
Mm.
just Ganesh is there, and like there's just all, it's just
Mm.
like, it's just, and then just the, how do I describe it? Like, we went to CM Reap. That's the big old ruins, the big old temple ruins. And even just the fact that you have to take shoes off and you can't have your shoulders shown. I didn't have a shawl because it was so hot, but I really wanted to respect that. That's the thing, respect. It's respect of different religions and cultures. And this beautiful guide came up to me and he said, "Oh, miss shoulders." I was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry." So I just said to my partner at the time, "You go. I'll stay back." And he went and borrowed one off of his little guide friends, and she came back and put the shawl around me and she went, "Please enjoy." And she was just, I was just like, "Oh, thank you." I was like, "Oh my God." And then just how they, even like going to China, like I've been to China, like I'm well traveled, like seeing their religion and the terracotta warriors and just the history. Like, I love bringing everything together and seeing how they lived. And like, I mean, I'm a big
Mm.
Egyptian history girl, so I love Egyptian gods. And I think, you know what? I dabble in all of it. I bring it all into my existence. I bring every little bit of it. Like you said, the Isis, and then you bring God and Jesus, and like you bring the ascended masters, the angels, the archangels. And that's what I love about Reiki and stuff like that, because like when you start to like do angelic Reiki, which I learned was that you bring all these ascended masters in, like Mother Mary and
Mm.
Mary Magdalene. It's like they're all existing together. There's no
Absolutely.
divide, like, oh, let's go into this and let's go into that. They're all just there with us in that omnism. Like, it's beautiful.
Mm.
So I'm really grateful for it. It's just, yeah.
How good. You know what? I just had this vision of all of these phenomenal living and non-living beings that have all participated um in an intention to help humans have faith.
Yeah.
And they're all hanging out there together, and they're
Yeah.
like laughing every time we think that one of them is real and another one isn't real. They're like, they're so funny. Like, look at them
I
playing the
know.
division game again. And it's like we're all sitting there with our popcorn, like hanging out together,
I know.
mingling. You know, and I that's what I believe. That's what I think it is. You know, they're all there, and every
Yeah.
time that we know that they're all there together, they're cheering us on, like, yeah,
The thing is, it's what we do in the living. It's what we do in the living life that matters. Because once
yeah,
we've gone, the truth will be revealed once we take our last breath.
yeah, yeah.
Just enjoy it.
Oh,
Enjoy it.
yeah,
Enjoy every part of it.
and be a fucking nice person.
Yes.
Not that
Do no
hard.
harm, take no shit.
Who don't have to take no shit.
That's the motto of the podcast.
It's become it. Thank you, Pauline.
It's true though. Yeah, it's great.
It
Yeah, great topic. I really hope it's resonated with some of you. And if it, like I said, if it has, like Shower mentioned, it's brought up uncomfortable emotions, or it's brought triggers up, or curiosity, you know, move into that with grace and love and
Yeah.
compassion. And if you want to reach out to us, we're here as well.
Mm.
Always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm. Thank
Namaste.
Thank
I just namaste. I love that word.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Amine.
Love you.
Love you.